Okay, the time has come to put it all together. So this is my front. I'm using a volleyball. You could use a rolled up towel. You could use a head mannequin if you have one. Whatever you like. But you're going to find the center of your hat. And you're going to position, excuse me. Let me show you another way to find your center is where we joined it in the front. This V stitch is your center. So I'm going to decide how I want my chicken head placed. Lined with the center. And then pin it with whatever you need to. I have some double pointed needles. You could use scrap yarn. You could use crochet hooks, whatever pleases you. Just catch enough of that you can center it and sew it, being confident that you're going to get that center look you want. So I saved a long tail. If you did not, just join a yarn in and go for it. I'm just going to take, excuse me. I'm just going to take my needle and thread and start working my way in and around. It's better to do maybe some wider stitches and go around it twice than to worry about trying to get a bunch of teeny tiny stitches in work that has so many openings. Those were my notes. If you heard that, good thing we don't need them anymore. All right, so I'm just going to keep working my way around until I feel like that head is on there securely. So let me just note that as you work these stitches around, you don't want to pull them tight, because it will like deform and like crimp your hat in the front, and we don't want that. So my head's on there. It looks straight for now anyway. This is my neck piece, which the centermost feather point will also line up with this center V. But you're going to place it on the neck and pin it. Again, I'll just use my double pointed needle. If you don't have them, hooks work. Now, if you look, it's kind of on a slight angle. So I start lower and kind of come up, but you also want to make sure that you're down enough in the back so that you don't have a big neck space gapping open where there is no feather. It should go in a line with like the crown of the head roundedness. If by chance you don't like the gap space back here, you know, like if you have, let's say something that looks like that, when you're done and you have a gap, you can just lift these up and make one feather, which you've already done the ear flaps and the other triangles. You just make that one feather and you use the long tails to sew it in place. But try and avoid that by lining it up and pinning it in place. So that is my neck. And I'm going to use my long tail. And this is the corner. I'm going to start by going in through one end, and then I'm going to catch this picot right next to it, and I'm going to go straight through the neck and into a picot in the front. The point of doing it this way is because we want to try and hold that stuffing in place up inside the head. So as you like wear it, if you have to wash it, I recommend hand washing and laying it flat to dry. But it will give you a little more secure stuffing, if you will. And then I'm just gonna, work my way around, going through the single crochet picot area and all the way through the neck. Now I don't want to track very big stitches across the outside of my work. So I will make a lot of smaller stitches here. I will watch for areas where it starts to gap and make sure I pin those down. So like right here, you can see it kind of like pops out away from the neck. I will make sure that I position that where I want it and then push through there. All right. Once you feel good about how secure that is, pull your pins out and double check. When you're happy with it, work your way back to the center area where you can lift up a feather and bury your tail in the underneath side. Now, looking at the center back, which again, you can use this V where we joined our ear flaps to work in the round. That first V stitch we worked into our chain 7. That is your center back. So as you can see, this is where we have our 4 feather across the front because it folds over onto the 3. And you can also see the back or the wrong side of the work. That faces towards the back of the person wearing the hat. You're going to try and line it up with this center feather. And then again, you're going to try and just pin it into place. Give it a look and make sure that you like it. I am going to move mine further back. You don't want to go too far back though, or it will be off the back of the head. You can hold up your wing and kind of, if it helps you get a better look here, my colors are pretty similar, so it's hard to see. But this is kind of the line for the back of my neck. And I want this edge of the feather to be in a line with that. And so I kind of want, you know, that tail to be in that space too, that angle, you know, angles to make it look good. Okay, so I have opened up my tail. I have my string, and I am going to just start working where I made my seam and my 4 and my 3 feather triangle. And I'm just going to try and stitch across there. Now, these are really big, wide, like basting stitches at first. And same thing with every piece you sew onto the head. Do not pull your string tight or you will deform the hat body. So once I go through and I baste across the inside, and I don't need my pins, now I will go through from the outside of the back and I will make kind of like little whip stitches where I can control where I'm going in. I don't want to sew into anything that will just fold up. I want to try and catch those V stitches. Not really the feathers, because the feathers aren't very stable. I mean, they'll roll and curl and stretch, but those V-stitch, they're a better option. Again, being careful not to pull too tight. And then you will just work until you are confident that your tail is going to stay in place. Then you will tie off your yarn and weave in your ends. So after I sewed my wings together, I did my picots. Now I'm going to use those lines like I said before. And I'm going to use this second row of feathers as my base, kind of. I want to be like in this middle opening on that diagonal. Want about this much space between my neck and my top feather. It's really just, I think, a preference thing. So it's going to be the same as the neck feathers working into these single crochet. If you can sew the majority of it on something like a ball or over a towel, instead of just trying to hold it and, you know, work through it, it will help keep your stitches, I guess, good. You know, like if somebody was wearing this hat, this is the stretch that it would have. And so by being mindful of not pulling your stitches tight, you will have stitches that don't deform your hat. Like I said with the neck, it's better to make wider stitches and go around it twice than try and catch little small ones. You want the V stitches that are like, I mean, this is really the foundation that you want to be working in, is these V stitches, because these feathers, I mean, they'll stretch all over the place. Now, because our single crochets only go from where we tacked our wing front, you're gonna kind of bounce around and randomly tack stitches. So I came up through the edge of this wing just past my last single crochet, and I'm gonna go over like one teeny tiny stitch that's like right next to it and go back in. This is where you kind of got to get, there we go, a little creative and put your hat on and off here, but you're going to watch where that stitch came out, and you don't want to go more than 1/2 inch away from where it originally went back down. So now I'm going to come up in the center of that same feather. It doesn't matter. It does not matter which feathers you choose to come up through. All that matters is that you don't have long running track strings going through the underneath side of your hat, because they will catch on things. They will catch on flyaway hairs. It will be annoying. And then you're just going to want to try and catch pieces that are those V-stitches. You don't need a lot of stitches to hold this upper wing portion in place. So like right now I can take my pins out and I can kind of check, like I can fold this whole wing back. So I'm probably just going to end it here, unless you want to work carefully all the way through the hat, which you can if you keep these underneath side tracks short. Like that little gray line. So there's a track, there's a track. This is my working yarn, but you want to keep those tracks short so that they kind of tuck into these. You don't want a track that's, you know, 3, 4, 5 inches long going across your hat, because it's going to catch on things. It's just not good. So I'm actually going to just tie off my yarn here and trim it, and then tack a different feather, and I'd rather weave in ends, but it's up to you. It's your choice. If you don't mind working tiny little stitches all the way around, go for it. I've made like 5 of these chicken hats now, perfecting this pattern. So I've about had my fill of wings. And before this, I did a stuffed chicken. So and then you will work your other wing just like this one. So to move around and just tack the feather, I went in, so I'm going to move this tail and tuck it in later, but I went into the back of one of these feathers right by where the V stitch is, where we worked our double crochets around the post. Then I'm going to lay my feather out so it's where I want it and it looks good. And I'm just going to work into that V stitch from the feather. And I will go down right by where I was before. The last piece we need to do is the legs. So I have 9 4 or 5 foot long strands. And I'm going to fold them in half in groups of 3. And then I'm going to take my most center 3 points here from my ear flap. And I'm going to go in this center of the feather and then right out. So here's that picot stitch. And I'm going to hook 3 of those strands and pull them through. Try and keep it centered because we're going to braid these. I'm going to do the same thing. So here's my first feather and then my row with 2 feathers. I'm going to do the same thing, trying to avoid catching that other feather. And then in this one. Then, being careful, I don't like fold, but I want to do this firmly so I don't have a bunch of slop. I'm just going to very carefully braid this, trying to make it so that it comes out right at the center point of this leaf. It's up to you how long you make this. I would suggest at least 6 to 8 inches. Okay, so once I have the length I want for my leg, I'm going to knot it like so, and try and pull that knot right into the bottom of the braid. And then I'm going to separate my strands again. So there should be 6 in each group. And I'm going to leave about 1.5 inches, and I'm going to tie a knot in the 6th. This is just supposed to look more like chicken feet. If you don't like it, you can do it a different way. I just thought this was kind of cute. But you're going to want to try and make them all the same length. Then the last one. Then I just trim it, a little below the knot. All right. So there is our ear flap string with the 3 toes. Now I will do the other side and the hat will be finished.